Hey everybody, this is Jim Grisanzio from the Oracle Groundbreakers team, and I'm here with David Stokes and LaFred to talk about MySQL. I met these guys earlier in the year in Brussels, and for the MySQL engineering event, and it was a fantastic event. I met them for the first time there and became friends, and so I suggested that we get together to talk about MySQL. MySQL is so big, it's got 2 community managers. And so welcome, guys. How you doing?
Doing great.
Fine.
Good, good. One of the things I noticed recently is that you guys had a 25th anniversary. I know the Java team has had a big event as well. I didn't realize MySQL was 25 years old. What's up with that? How did that go?
Well, it's kind of shocking because we've always been the bright and shiny up-and-coming product, and suddenly we're 25 years old. It's a little shocking, but it's great. It shows the ubiquity of MySQL, that it's still there and still thriving. It's still growing.
And we are still very popular.
Yeah.
Because last year, so in 2019, we got an award of DB Engine to be the RDBMS of the year. So 25 years, but still young and full of energy.
So with the 25 years, I mean, are you guys going to be doing is this going to be like a sort of like a rolling thing where you have events and sort of remembrances and things like that? I mean, the community's been around for a long time, so we're talking about a lot of people who would presumably have stories and, you'd be interested in sort of, telling their stories, right?
It'd be interesting if we could. On the 20th anniversary, we had a community reception as part of Oracle Open World. And we were able to get our original CEO, Martin Mikos, there with our current MySQL head, Rich Mason, to cut a cake that said 20 on there. And that was kind of like, oh my God, 20 years. If we can keep this up for another 20 years, we might have something. With the COVID crisis, the lack of travel, and everyone being gun shy, and I have a lot of friends that are very conscious before all this of going to conferences and getting what they call the conference crud. We might have to do something online, but I don't know if that would be of interest to a lot of folks. A bunch of us old farts talking, hey, remember when we could not do transactions, and before we had this and before we had that? I don't know. It might be popular for reminiscing, but I don't think it'd be very popular to a lot of developers out there.
So what's it? So David, you're in Texas, right?
Yes, sir.
And LaFred, you're in Belgium.
Sure.
And you guys basically, in terms of the community management, you guys basically split things up, on geography, right? So you have like a global sort of a perspective. Around the clock, you guys are involved.
Well, we try to divide and conquer.
Yeah, it depends of events. Like you said earlier, in Brussels, Dave was there to help me because it was for us a very big event and a lot logistic to do. So for me alone, it's quite complicated. So Dave was there, and on the big events in US, like Open World, I go there also to take part of the team and to help down there.
Is there anything interesting that's going on in the community? When I was there for your event earlier in the year, one of the things that struck me was that there was an enormous amount of content. I think it was 2 days, right?
Yeah.
It was just back to back, an enormous amount of technical content, and there was a buzz. There was a palpable buzz where people were actively talking and building things. There were individual developers there. There were companies there, and I had a real sense that this is a thriving community. Now things obviously we're all sort of land based now, but is there anything interesting going on that we can talk about in terms of maybe from that conference or any specific projects that come to mind that are becoming more prominent recently?
Well, we've been adding new features every quarter. We're on the continuous integration, continuous development bandwagon. So roughly every 3 months, we have a new version coming out. Had a lot of excitement around hash joins. There's a lot of things that Oracle database users will hear that, oh my God, you folks have that. and find it is kind of. What's real interesting to me is you go out to the LinkedIn. I manage the MySQL group on LinkedIn, or you go out to mysqlcommunity.slack.com and look at the explosion of people asking questions. You go out to Stack Overflow, and there's always more and more questions. On LinkedIn, the group has just been growing almost exponentially over the past 6-7 months. So there's something still there that's exciting about MySQL, even though it's reaching 25 years and not the hot and up and coming piece of software out there, but it still has so much utility.
Yeah, and as you say, Jim, the event you have been part where the people were meeting the developers, right, the engineering team. These are special because in MySQL we try to keep the full community together, right, and the what we can say the newbies or people discovering MySQL.
Right.
And that event was not made for them. We have plenty of other events where we focus on helping new coming or new DBAs. But that event was very more, as you could see, the audience there knew what we are talking about. There were skilled DBAs or skilled developers. And when they meet these engineers, we take also the feedback to prepare what will be in the next release. For example, the previous events like this, we were discussing with DBAs and they were telling, okay, bin log compression. Some of the big companies had issue with the amount of bin logs and the size of them. And they were discussing, oh, bin log compression, that would be great, but we would like it like this or like that. Then we talk about contribution from other big companies like in Japan. And so we were discussing what will be the best way to do that. And so all this discussion happened on this kind of event. And finally, in 8.020, we have bin log compression that is now in MySQL 8. This is one of the many examples. So we try to focus on usability for the users or the new DBA up to talking very deeply technical with this, I would say, guru of MySQL. Right?
I tell the newbies, if you have questions, go out to mysqlcommunity.slack.com or forums.mysql.com and ask your question. The engineers are willing to give their time to answer complicated questions. We have dedicated people in the community who will ask their general questions. And the only caveat I have is sometimes we tend to get verbose. So when we're talking too much, tell us to please shut up.
That's actually an interesting observation because when I was there, just sitting in the audience and talking to people, people were very chatty, and they were very willing to engage. And so, and I specifically asked the question. When do people get involved? How do they get involved and stuff? And there were obviously many answers and many things you can do, asking questions, fixing bugs, these kinds of things, participating on mailing lists. But what kind of struck me is that people were really interested in getting new people involved. So, it's 25 years old, but new people are always getting involved. And that seemed to me, that was my impression, I think that's probably the only MySQL event I've ever been to. So it's my first impression.
We need to get you to more.
What's that?
We need to get you to more MySQL events.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of in the plan,
A year from now, all the Java guys say, hey, what happened to the Jim guy? We kind of lost him. Oh, he went off into the MySQL universe, and then we lost him forever.
Yeah. I had a lot of big plans earlier in the year. Was mapping out my travel schedule for the whole year.
But I think you were very lucky. You were very lucky to be at that event.
Really?
For the first time. Your first step in the MySQL community was that event, because I think it's one of the better event, even, let's say, I try to say so without modesty, right? Because it's managed by us, and there is plenty of other events managed by other people in the community that are awesome. But other events sometimes are also, people pay for it. This one was a free event.
Right.
And we also, because the day after was the FOSDEM dev room, where it's also a free event. And at this free event, we try also to engage and to encourage new speakers to join. And you saw that some of the talks are very small, like 30 minutes max, it's 25
Right.
minutes. So we try to have at least one or two speakers that are completely new in the community as a speaker to give them the chance, because when they submit talks to other big events that are pay events, they don't get the chance to speak because they don't have that experience maybe. So we try to involve them speaking in our free events. If they are bad, because that could happen, hopefully it never happened to us yet. But if they are very bad, okay, you lose 25 minutes of your day. But if they are good, then people discover them, and then it gives them the chance to go in other community events for MySQL, which is very what we also try to achieve.
Now that we're talking about conferences, one of the things that I've noticed just on Twitter, both of you guys are participating in various online events. And obviously the whole tech world is doing this. Can you give me just a summary, basically, about what you've done in the last couple of months, what you're talking about, what's hot, and basically how's it going? Because each one of these events has a slightly different format. Most people are using Zoom, but some people are using different applications. So how's that going for you?
It's kind of crazy. This would normally be the crazy time of my year where I'm off on the road a whole lot. Excuse me a second, I have a dog who's active. But it's one of those things where I love the participating to an audience and actually being able to see the audience and talk to them. So talking to a sterile screen and the microphone isn't as enjoyable for me, but I've mainly been talking about new features in MySQL 8. It's the old Pareto optimum where 80% of your users are using 20% of the features. And last December, I was talking in London and I mentioned a new feature, and this guy got very angry in the back of the room, and I found out later that if he had known about this new feature that we've had for 6 months, it would have saved him about 2 months worth of time. So it's one of those things where I'm going out there, and I was speaking at Midwest PHP. I spoke to the cPanel folks, Open Source 101, all on new features of MySQL, stuff that we've put out in the past 2 years. 2 days ago, I spoke to the DB Ask Me Anything about JSON table. MySQL is the only open source database out there with JSON table, which is a function that takes your unstructured JSON data and temporarily makes it structured for processing with SQL. And also our JSON document validation that we got the idea from JSONschema.org, where you have an exemplar document and you test it against the incoming data before it gets in your database. So you catch the bad stuff before it gets in there. Good stuff there is you now have required fields, data checks, and range checks before your data gets going. Also had a talk at Linux Fest Northwest Online, which is kind of like, and I have at the Open Source Summit, I'm going to be giving another talk on MySQL features. So it's great going out there and talking new stuff, but I kind of miss the audience because I have a lot of good jokes out there, and it's just not the same when you don't get the response from the punchline.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a different paradigm. But there are some disadvantages, obviously, but it actually opens up some opportunities for people as well. But also, everyone's online now, so it's like there's an overflow, there's an avalanche of events now. A lot of them are overlapping. So,
well, a lot of event organizers are kind of wondering: in the future, do we keep online? No, they kind of like the in-person shows. Vendors like being able to collect leads and shake hands and talk product booths.
Right.
But maybe for some speakers, you don't want to pay that ticket to fly someone halfway around the world. You pre-record their stuff and have them live for Q&A. We'll have to see how that changes.
Yeah, to be honest, like Dave, I think this opportunity of being not on the road gives me the opportunity to talk to different people, because usually, for example, let's say if I am in Japan and at the same time there is a conference in Israel, I have to decline the one in Israel because I am in Japan. And at this period, there is a lot of conferences everywhere usually, and so I have to decline several ones. And this time I try to not decline any. So not next week, but the week after, I have 3 conferences the same week. So I will
Wow.
be part of Israel Oracle user group. I've been invited there on Monday. On Wednesday, I will talk to Open Expo Europe virtual conference. And on Thursday, I will talk about in Japan, in Japan, virtually in Japan, on the MySQL Cafe #8.
Since you have a lot of events and you're reaching a lot of people, from a virtual space, do you find that a lot of these people are following up with you and engaging with you, like at least attempting to engage with you like they would if it were a physical event?
It's a bit different, I would say. For example, yesterday we had a WePay meetup. So Oracle, MySQL, WePay made a big meetup together. And after my session, I had several questions that usually people are shy to ask. Here, it was typing, so it's easy for them to ask the question. And I point them to a blog post I wrote, and then I saw just after the conference that I had some new followers on Twitters. And
Right.
then question came, then people joined Slack because I discussed about, okay, if you want to look for me, we have a community Slack. And then I see people joining, but I see that also during the real conference, exactly almost the same, but less questions or questions more less from newbies. But like 2 weeks ago, I had the chance to make a keynote for Percona Life virtual conference. It was 24 hours of open databases. And I asked, because they had a chat, I asked who was the first time attending that conference, because that conference is quite popular, but it was the first time online. And there was a lot of new people
Really?
that don't have the chance to pay the ticket to Austin. I was in Austin last year. And so this is also, let's say, the positive point of doing virtual. And when it's free, it's that a lot of people around the world can join that usually they don't have the chance to get a ticket, or maybe the job don't tell them, okay, you can go now. If you're in India and you have to go to Austin for 2 days of conference, it's maybe expensive, or you need to take more days to travel and stuff, which virtual conference doesn't. You don't have that, so it's easy to do. But so for people, it's nicer. But for me and for Dave, we are much more busy than usual, to be honest, because it's we need to prepare new content all the time and
More frequently, right? Right.
yes, and it's cool. I mean, but it's I never worked that much, to be honest, because all that work, sometimes I do flying. I prepare, but now I don't do that flying. But meanwhile, I'm replying to the developers, replying to people on Slack, on the forums, doing my blog posts, testing the new stuff. So all the work is still there, plus the conference, plus the preparation. So I'm quite busy, to be honest, very, very busy.
And we are available for anything besides birthday parties and bar mitzvahs. So if you have a conference coming up there and you want Fred or myself or both of us, let us know.
Do you think this lasts with this volume of events?
Yes and no. I'm hoping we get back to the live events because I like a real hallway track. As Fred says, there's a lot of folks who are shy about typing out their question.
Yeah.
Heck, they're still shy about showing up at a live conference, but occasionally they'll come and say, "Hey, I've been thinking about this," and you'll start a dialogue with them. It's nice not having to sit in those uncomfortable airline seats for several hours on end to get to the conferences, but I miss the interaction with the people. I miss going around and see what the other vendors do. And also, whenever I go to a conference, I always look on the schedule for something that I know absolutely nothing about and try to get into that talk just for self-education. But like Fred said, we are busier now. Heck, there's an email a couple of weeks ago, a quote from Murray Ellison himself, who was saying, Zoom is great, but he's having these meetings now. So,
is there a part of the world, so these conferences that you would ordinarily be going to, flying to, like Fred, you mentioned Japan, is there any trends recently in terms of growth or active interest in any specific part of the world, since you guys basically split up the whole world together?
Well, the one funny thing for me, living just north of Fort Worth, is a lot of the bigger conferences, like the Bracona conference and the open source summits, move around. And for some reason this year, they all seem to have picked Austin, and which is a 2.5 hour drive for me. So it's kind of like, well, I won't get the airline miles, but I get to go down to Austin, hang out in South Congress and go to see the live music capital of the world. It depends. The shows themselves tend to pick the big cities. The bigger shows have to pick the big cities that have the convention centers. Some of the smaller ones, like some of the PHP shows I go to that may attract 300 to 500 people. Talking to their organizers, they're not really so impacted. It's some of the bigger shows that are in the Raleighs or the San Franciscos where they really don't know, 6 months down the road what the health implications are, what the requirements are going to be for insurance and stuff like that. So it's too early to tell what the future is going to be for trending that way. But I do miss the live shows and the human interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Europe you won't have a live show in 2020 anymore.
But when we have,
I saw some in November asking if for, like in Italy, there is some in November show that are postponed to November. But I don't think that will happen because autumn seems to be, nobody knows what's going on, right? So I think in 2020 we won't have live show anymore for us, or in Europe at least.
Yeah.
I doubled in US, and let's see.
Yeah, well, the big barometer I'm looking at will be FOSDEM 2021. Fred will once again do the yeoman work there, doing 99.999% of the organization for that.
Well,
in Belgium until August, and there will not be any events. Like concerts outside or inside. All that kind of events are all not allowed right now until end of August in Belgium.
Right.
So
things are opening up. Things are opening up here a little bit now. I noticed that there's a couple of groups in Tokyo that I used to participate in. They're starting to meet live now, but very, very small. And but
in Belgium we are 10 people max.
Yeah,
10 people
things like
max
that
right now in Belgium. So it's
So if
traveling for 10 people, it's
so if FOSDEM is the next event, let's say, that'll be a year. That'll be a year since I met you guys.
Yes.
So, hey, I have a question about joining communities, since you guys are community managers among other things that you do. So if I'm a young developer, or just really any developer, and trip over MySQL, I need it for my job, and how do I get involved? Throw out some things that I can do to get involved. I'm going to have to build something at work. I'd like to be able to contribute code, maybe fix some bugs or contribute a feature, or whatever. What are some types of things, and also where do I go to do this?
GitHub, I would say it's the place to be. Our code base is there, and so as most of the project that have also business around it, right? You need to sign OCA if you want to contribute code. You need to sign an OCA, and when it's signed, you can contribute your code. And once it's let's say you send it, then a process start where you discuss with the developers, they check your patch and all that kind of stuff. And it's fun because we hear always sometime what's true or false with MySQL, and there are all this stuff that MySQL doesn't take any contribution, right? Which is completely false, because we are completely GPL and all our products are GPL. And for example, just a number, for MySQL 8.0 up to 8.020, we had 264 contributions.
Oh.
So we take contribution, and we take a lot of contribution, and let's say and from everywhere. So we had Facebook, but also individual people. For example, we have Daniel Van Ede. It's somebody from Holland working from Booking. Only him sends 39 contribution for MySQL 8.0.
39, did you say?
39, yes. So currently we had 58 individual contributors, meaning not employees, people outside of MySQL team contributing to MySQL 8. So it's a lot. So if you are a newbie and you want to, and there was somebody recently on Slack asking about it, I would tell maybe check bugs to fix, right? Because there are some bugs. And also, if you don't know what to do yet, documentation bugs. So also documentation, it's easy to, I don't say it's easy to write, please, but typos, you find a typo or something like that, or a sentence that doesn't make sense to you or something like that, it could happen. Then contribute, if you want to start being in the process, you can do that. And then if the code base, it's C++, it's can be complicated. We have also a wonderful tool, which is MySQL Shell, that allows you to write Python or JSON or JavaScript code in MySQL with the server. You can connect to it and create your own plugins. So this is also one thing cool to do if you want to create a wizard or something. You say, oh, this is an operation I want to do often, but it's very complicated to do. I want to create a plugin to do all that for me, to automate all that. You can do it. It's in Python most of the time, and you can contribute that back. So it's also one way to get in this ecosystem.
Well, one thing, if I can interject, the OCA or Oracle Contributor Agreement. Years ago, I spoke at the Linux Foundation Leadership Summit, talking about how MySQL has evolved with the OCA. And I did not know I was speaking to a room of 80% lawyers. And I basically talked about the MySQL contributor process, how it's evolved over the past quarter century. And then I actually read all 5 paragraphs of the OCA. It's a very easy to read, actually written in English, not in legalese. And it basically says, hey, this is my code. It's no one else's code. If I want to pull it out later, the code can't come out because we might be depending on it, but you have limited rights. Oracle has limited rights, and it spells them out in detail. So if you have any questions and you are a coder, you can download the OCA and read it. Like I said, it's 5 paragraphs or so, written in non-legalese, very easy to understand. And once you get that out there, we can take your patches or additions, no problem, and we willingly will do that. And we will thank you very profusely. Fred has I guess they call it noise chart of all the various folks who contribute stuff for 8.0. And it's every time I turn around, it seems to be getting more and more dense with all these different things out there. So
you've both mentioned several platforms: GitHub, obviously, Slack, and I think LinkedIn. This, just like all communities, like Facebook, maybe. These people are distributed all over the place. Do you have any centralized place where you have your discussions, or is it just distributed?
Well, the main place used to be forums.mysql.com, which I think now is like 62 different subforums. But over the past year or so, it's been transitioning over to mysqlcommunity.slack.com. They're both very valuable. And of course, there's things on Reddit, Stack Overflow, Quora, you name it. There's even a community site off one of the Oracle community pages. And I patrol most of those on a fairly regular basis. So it's all over there, but the Slack and the forums are probably the main two to really concentrate on.
And the source of truth, I would say, if you contribute, it's bugs.mysql.com. There, it's where you send your code, and when somebody push, let's say on GitHub, push a patch there, it creates a bug on bugs.mysql.com, and then all communication will be in that bug number, we track everything from there. So
Right.
after, if you want to discuss that on Slack or everywhere else, you can always use that puck ID. Is where we're gonna put comments or people will chat together. This is the source of truth for us. All the rest, it's not noise, it's just help. But I mean, if you want to contribute, bugs.mysql.com is the platform.
All right. Well, we've got new people contributing. We've got more established developers. We got individual developers. We have companies, lots of events, thriving community, 25 years old, 2 community managers, and somewhat of interest, me. Cool. Guys, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you. It was great meeting you a few months ago. And stay well. And maybe every 6 months or so, we'll get together and talk MySQL. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.